Kenyans went to the ballot to choose their leaders who are going to steer this economy into the next level. More than 1 week later, the country is going back to normalcy, with Kenyans now going back to their workplaces and businesses opening, and of course, order is rising. That is a sign that the economy is slowly but surely picking up and getting back to work. Because at the end of the day, that is our assignment as Kenyans. Regardless of who carries the day, we have Project Kenya to build and to construct. Welcome to Biz Check. My name is O'Brien Kimani. This is KBC, and of course we are live from Broadcasting House. This morning we want to focus on the issues of economy and how do we continue with our agenda of building our economy even as we head to the Vision 2030. There's so much that we still need to do, because when you look at the numbers of unemployed people in this country, we definitely have a lot of work ahead of us. Well, this is the conversation that we are going to have in the next 1.5 hours or 2 hours. And joining me on the set is Vimal Shah. He is an industrialist and manufacturer, a past chairperson of Kenya Private Sector Alliance, and he's also the current chair of Kenya Daima. Thank you very much indeed, Vimal Shah, for your time. And Victor Otieno is the managing director of VIFA Concert, and he's also joining us on this set. Thank you very much, Otieno. I want to start with you, Vimal. As an industrialist, as a person involved in, or who is deeply involved in the manufacturing agenda in this country, have you seen people now going back to work?
I think the benefit is from yesterday onwards. We've seen a lot of people moving back to work. And I think today I was pleasantly surprised to be stuck in traffic. And there was quite a bit of people going back to work. And I think this is our rallying call to say, let's get back to work. I would ask all employers to open their businesses and allow all their staff to come in. And I think it started off, a lot of our industries, we started work on Wednesday. And, it was only a Tuesday was a holiday. But I think what happened is once this issue around the results came in, there was anxiety. But that day, people had to close down and everybody shut down. But I think now we're all back to normal.
And the question that everyone is asking is, how do we get to a point whereby, yes, we say politics, aside, and politics, can continue, and still we continue with the business of building this country, building the economy. Otieno.
Thank you very much for having me. I think if you were to speak to small businesses in Kenya and if you look at the last 10 years, this sector has really, received the brunt of systemic shocks. Remember, the challenges that we are looking at started 2017, where we had an election and a rerun. We had issues around drought. We had issues around access to credit. If you remember the interest rate cap, where it was later repealed. Coming back to 2019, a short break. Then 2020, 2021, we had COVID. Come to 2021, almost the entire year we've been through an electionary period. So if you combine this with also suboptimal intervention by government, if you are to consider the post-COVID-19 economic stimulus program and the subsequent economic recovery strategy, which didn't really augur well with the micro small businesses, it tells you that SMEs have continued to struggle, and we don't have any space to waste time, and we really need to go back to work. And I think that's the challenge that micro small businesses are facing. Remember, a majority of them are family owned. Over 90% of what we call SMEs are micro, so they live on a day-to-day paycheck. So they cannot afford, or we cannot afford, to have an extra day of any kind of disturbance, whether through politics or otherwise.
Vimal, when you look at the Kenyan economy, we have a history of cyclical booms and busts. Every time we go to the election, and our growth is usually around 2.5 to around 4 point something. Do you expect this year to be different?
Very, very different. I think this year Kenyans have shown far more maturity. We've shown that, although despite people had that backdrop of 2007, 2013, and then 2017 to say we could end up in a problem, I think this year we've seen 5.6, 5.7%, and we haven't seen a dip. And I think that's very important to say that, the Kenyan people stood up. It was different. And I think where I would say congratulate every candidate all over the country. I mean, we had 16,000 candidates all over the country, and they were campaigning left, right, and center. But they were peaceful. And I think that was quite crucial for people to go on, and business didn't shut down. At the last week, I think a lot of people said, destock, reduce your stocks, and don't have transport and stuff like that. A bit of a disruption, because I think the fear was still there. But I think we've come a long way. And I think what has ended now in is everybody shown their leadership. All our leaders, all those who won and all those who learned what to do better next time, have been mature, number one. Number two, I think never again will we have that situation where we see a dip. And I think what we would gun for now is to have everything done by electronic voting, and really have a system whereby you're working, and the same day you just put your vote on your phone or your device or whatever. And let's get that system designed and made by Kenyans. Test it now, put it together, and say, fine, here we go. And really, we can do it. It's not difficult for us to do it. So I would just say that I think the democracy has deepened, people have matured, and you have so many independent candidates this time. So I think it's good. I think we've come a long way.
Look, Otieno, I mean, when you look at the SME sector, and I know this is an area that you have tremendous amount of expertise on, I mean, they contribute about almost 90% of, the country's total workforce. And it is projected that in the next 3 years, their contribution to Kenya's economy is expected to reach about 50% of GDP. And the question now that we ought to be asking ourselves is, because they are the most vulnerable, in the face of shocks, how do we mobilize resources towards funding SMEs and ensuring that we keep them at work going forward?
I think the challenge that we've had with successive governments in Kenya is the lack of up-to-date data, which, by data I mean information that you use to, come up with interventions. So as we speak currently, the last data collection that was done in Kenya is 2016. So any intervention that has happened subsequent to 2016 is using old data. So even up to now, we talk about having around 7.4 million SMEs. That is 2016. Of course, that number has shifted. So it's difficult for us, or it will be a challenge for us to say SMEs are going to contribute more than 33% of GDP, and of course, they're going to create more employment. But if you don't support them using up-to-date data, then it means you're shooting in the dark. And we have seen so many examples of that, the post-COVID-19, economic stimulus program. If you look at the way they were structured vis-a-vis the informality of SMEs. So we are looking at, for example, VAT, where pay as you earn, and yet we know over 79% of our businesses are informal. The income kunji in Korogosho. So you can see that there's a mismatch in terms of the understanding of who SMEs are vis-a-vis the kind of interventions that we are seeing. Well, I'm hoping that the next government would take data very seriously in terms of just update who are SMEs, which sectors are they in, how, what the kind of turnovers that they are having, and have continuous engagement with them to be able to understand, number one, then put appropriate resources to them. Remember, we don't have significant fiscal headroom. So we are in a cash crunch. So whatever resources that you have, you need to ensure that it actually is effective towards SMEs to enable them to grow. So if you, for example, if you have to look at the issue around access to finance, subsequent governments have failed in terms of using state resources to be able to give access to finance. Look at your affirmative action funds, your youth fund, your women fund. Of course, they struggled. We have the credit guarantee scheme, which was a game changer, but again, the way it was rolled out, it didn't have the realism with SMEs. Of course, we saw government work with major banks, but again, if you look at the informality of SMEs, they are not in banks, they are in fintech, they are in they are in Pesa Mshwari. So I'm hoping that as the new government comes in, they would consider take stock of the current action that is there. You know, you have the Credit Guarantee Scheme, you have your Movable Property Securities Act, and all these funds or some de-risking mechanism that the previous government had implemented, see the gaps and possibly move away maybe from working with banks, work with your fintechs because they're already lending to SMEs, then probably we can be able to see some level of growth in terms of access to finance. Otherwise, if we continue business as usual, then we'll just continue to recycle the same old ideas, and SMEs will continue to struggle.
When you look at the last 6 months, the last 6 months, this country has been gripped in politics. The cutthroat competition of politics, and this is definitely has somehow impacted on employment, on orders, deliveries, and so much. How has SMEs been impacted by this?
If you look at, of course, the current data we have is over 79% of the people we call SMEs are in wholesale retail. So these are businesses that buy either tomatoes, onions, or electronics to sell. And they rely mostly on foot traffic, on FaceTime. So it means that they're either on a market or something. So the moment you have any kind of disruption in their market or in their shop, it means chances are either they will close or lose their stock. So of course, if you are to look at COVID, SMEs were affected because a majority are in wholesale retail. Of course, even when you have politics, because you have stock and stock is what is valuable to you, then probably you either close down or reduce your stock, which of course has a direct bearing or a direct impact on their operation. So of course, politics and especially negative politics where there is a lot of negativity or fighting, then of course that has some level of impact on SMEs. And we've seen a very slow grind in terms of business for the last 3 years. So we are talking 2020.
3 years actually.
Yeah, 2020, remember we had COVID. 2021, maybe towards the last quarter is when maybe government opened up. Then immediately we were ushered in to politics through either BBI or any other kind of political activities. Of course, this has a very negative impact on small businesses, and they are struggling. That's why if you looked at the way, immediately the announcement was down, a majority of businesses went back to work because they don't have an option. It's not like, you have some cash reserve somewhere. Yeah, so the last paycheck is what you have. You need to pay rent. So I think we need to be able to handle the grievances that are happening within the political space in a manner that is peaceful. Go through the court system, but allow business or the business climate or business environment to be tranquil for them to be able to make some money.
And Vimal, Otieno is bringing a very interesting concept here. I mean, when you look at the last 3 years, they have been very tough, for the business environment in this country. First of all, we had COVID in 2020. It disrupted our country, our economy, all the way up to mid-2021. Before we could celebrate Christmas, then here we are in 2022, cutthroat competition, politics. And now here we are again. How is this likely to impact the manufacturing sector?
I think we've gone through, I would say, let's go and say this, we've gone through the worst. COVID was not easy for us at all. We've gone through that, we've gone through election cycle, and I think that's all past us. So even today, you see a lot of people are very relieved in terms of saying, okay, fine, now all that is gone. Now it's getting back to what we do best, right? And I think the issue around opportunities is important right now. The issue around vision of where we go next is important. I think the opportunity space is very big for our people to do a lot more. We've learned through COVID, we've learned through this election system, even the SMEs, manufacturers, everybody's learned how to cope with it. I think that coping mechanism will help us a lot. Right now, it is, whatever the results or whatever happens in politics, I think that's behind us now. And I think the key issue now is to say, let's get on with it. I would say one thing, Kenya is peaceful. It's not going to go back to that system ever, where we have no peace. And therefore, all manufacturers, we've got enough opportunities. We've got the whole of East Africa for us. We've got the whole of COMESA. We've got the whole of African Continental Free Trade Area. We've negotiated agreements. AGOA with America, we can export our goods duty-free to America. We've got the EPAs, the Economic Partnership Agreements with Europe. export there. Yesterday we saw UK also saying we allow exports from Kenya under a new, not EPAs, but another new system. And really, we have market access. So what do we need? We have the people. We have the ideas. Let's get on with it. I think what's crucial is that the new policies set out that we help all our SMEs, all our manufacturers to become far more competitive than they were before. And it's the only way we're going to improve our economy, to say export much more, take advantage of all the areas, and you know what, just add more jobs, because we can increase the number of jobs here exponentially. I mean, government for sure, there's a huge opportunity to go completely digital government, right? E-government completely, and really make it far faster. And that makes it transparent also, because everything is traceable. Go to blockchain and really make it such that every government service is online, and speeding that up. So that whole thing about rent seeking for people to say, if you want a government service, you go and get something here, something there. I think SMEs suffer the most, because 10, 20 licenses from county government, from national government and all that stuff. Before they start, I think that's important to say, can we get rid of all that and go back to that single business user license or whatever, and really remove the impediment. So opportunity-wise, I think far more ready in terms of having learned the worst. And I think right now, it's just that space to say, wow, big relief, and we get on with it.
As the chairman of Kenya Daima, you know, an initiative that brings together, you know, political actors, religious leaders, manufacturers, security entities, what would you say so far in regards to the elections, and how now the country is getting you know, this election cycle, you know, behind us and moving forward?
I think I would first of all say that Kenyans, thank you very much, and really congratulations to Kenyans for having maintained peace, number one, and also showing your leadership that, you know, you will not get swayed by XYZ. To all the people, Kenya Daima is a movement of the religious bodies, religious sector, the civil society, the business sector, the women's youth groups, our student leaders, university student leaders. Kudos to them. They were not used to any politicking this time. Again, women groups, there's so many of the media. Responsible media, I would say, did a fantastic job of really cutting out anything that was derogatory or whatever, and there wasn't there. So that's one thing. I think all the candidates also showed very good leadership in really maintaining peace. I don't think they had a war cry or they didn't have any hate speech. And I think that's where you can talk to people like NCIC and all the rest, all the agencies who did a good job. So I think overall, you know, when we look at it from that angle, I would just say congratulations to Kenya showing your leadership. We had all the four presidential candidates signing on to leadership and peace pledges, right? And they've lived up to them, all of them, including the one that said, win or lose, we will use the court processes. And if you see the last line there, it talks about anything that happens, we use the due processes, and that's being done right now. So I think that's what's important. So as we go forward, I think really Kenyans have shown a maturity, including when we said Kagua kabla ya kuchagua. I think that rallying call went across a lot, and you've seen a lot of people have fallen by, new people have come in. And the youth, I mean, amazing to have a 24-year-old, we call her Toto, right?
Yep.
To come in and, you know, without any funding, without any money, but she could make it too. So I think the opportunity space is opened up. I think this country has changed for the better. So going forward, the opportunities we have, let's look at them and say, fine. All the governors, they're already in place. All the senators are already in place, which means they're elected, but they'll be sworn in soon. Yeah. The MPs are already in place. We haven't had any issues there because they've gone into counting and recounting and doing all that is necessary. So really, we have already the baseline set. And what we're waiting for is a decision on one. Let it go to court, let it be done.
Yes. I just wanted to add to what Vima was saying in terms of supporting business. Again, the reality is, despite all the lofty promises that were made, is we are in a very tight space. You know, looking at our fiscal deficit of around 800 billion, which is growing if you have to consider, you know, the IMF loan that we received the other day for budgetary support, and look at the different subsidies that the previous government has been able to sustain in terms of maize as well as fuel. So that, of course, is compounding the already challenge that we have. And we have two opportunities for the next government. Number one is in terms of creating revenue for businesses. And I think, as Vimal has pointed out, there are a couple of protocols that are there that if you were to take them seriously, we would require less investment. The return on investment on, for example, creating opportunities within CFTA vis-a-vis maybe investment on infrastructure would be much higher. We have the Strategic Trade Investment Partnership between Kenya and the US, which is up for negotiation. Previously, we had the President Uhuru go to Portugal and seeking opportunities. We have opportunities in DRC. So there are opportunities to be able to create revenue and new business models for small businesses in Kenya. Number two is if you're to look at cost. And again, we're looking at simple ways or cost-effective ways of really supporting business. So if you were to look at government as a catalyst for reducing the cost of SMEs, number one would be the issue around unification. And I think the governor for Nairobi had mentioned that one of the promises is to be able to unify all licenses. So it's not, the idea is it costs you to be able to comply. Mm-hmm. So for you to be able to get your single business permit, get your public health, get fire, you have to go to different departments, share the same document, whether it's your ID. So if that process can be simplified, it means that even the cost of compliance would go down, and even the issue around formalization can be very easy to handle. So number one is unification of license. But also one of the biggest challenges that we have in the country is county licenses. So there is a lot of duplication within counties. So for instance, if you are to transport maize from Kitale to Nairobi, you'd pay cess across all the counties that you go through with different formulas. It's not like when you set out, how much it's going to cost you. So if there could be some level of harmonization, either within the different regional blocks, so at least we know within this block there is some unification of sorts, that would help bring cost of doing business down. Mm-hmm. Yeah, so those are issues, and of course there is branding license. So if we're able to look at those issues that might not cost as much, it would require just amendment of laws, and as we've seen in the various business amendment laws that has been done, which gave birth to even you registering your business online. So if we can focus on those salient issues to reduce cost and also look for market opportunities for businesses, I think that can be a huge plus as opposed to infrastructure investment, because we've seen infrastructure investment, yes, they are good, they are foundational, but they are not able to, they don't have the capacity in the short term, at least, to be able to resuscitate the economy. And we need to be able to have, to put our SMEs, our local informal manufacturers into play for them to be able to be productive.
Mm-hmm. And you're bringing an interesting argument here, because when you look at, the outgoing administration of Uhuru Kenyatta, it has managed to put up more than 7 trillion Kenya shillings into the infrastructure, from roads to ports to airports to civil lines to water expansion and to healthcare system. And there has been this argument that the SMEs are yet to take advantage of the expanded infrastructure to expand their operations, to be more aggressive in business. And then again, here you are saying that, it is high time that now we shift our focus on infrastructure expansion now to give more incentives to SMEs. What kind of incentives would you be talking about?
I'm not saying that investment in infrastructure is wrong. I'm just saying there has to be a balance, because again, if you're looking at return on investment and you're going to borrow, at some point you're going to pay that debt. Mm-hmm. So if you don't invest in a sector or invest in a way that allows you to be able to repay your debt sustainably, then you will have challenges. What would mean is you're investing in infrastructure, it's not giving you a return, so you have to get revenue from elsewhere. What happens is either you have to overtax your business people, all borrow more to be able to sustain debt payment, and that can't work. So I think it's been proven that SMEs are the backbone of the economy. They're contributing 33% to GDP. They are employing over 30% of Kenyans. That is where your cash cow is. If you just need for them to grow by a certain digit. If they grow 10%, that means there is a direct correlation between that growth and revenue collection. So that is what we are saying. So for you to be able to help them, number one is you need to be able to get their data. If I don't know what you're going through, then probably I'll prescribe a wrong medicine for you. So what I'm saying is our data is old. We need to update that to be able to ensure that we know what we are dealing with. Number two is we need more dialogue so that, of course, we can do data, but there are also qualitative issues that small businesses go through. For instance, I can give you an example. Is a lot of manufacturing is informal. So the thing we call manufacturing in Kenya, 95% in terms of population is within the informal manufacturing. They contribute around 40% of the total contribution of manufacturing. The small, medium to big manufacturers around 5%, but contribute, of course, higher in terms of 60%. So the potential is on the small informal manufacturers who are in Majengo, who are in Kariobangi light industry. Can you be able to support them? Don't say, let's take them to a special economic zone. Help them where they are. What do they need? They need electricity. They need a clean environment. They need this and that. If we can be able to solve that now, it means that they can grow by a factor of 10, and that has a direct correlation in terms of revenue collection. So those kind of incentives have to resonate with SMEs. So if we know, for example, we have Uhuru Market. You go to Uhuru Textile Market, find out exactly what they're going through, find ways of ensuring that they're able to grow. And I think that's the only way we can be able to support our informal manufacturers. We can't just sit in the offices and decide, these guys need a special economic zone in whatever location. Yes, that's good, that's ideal, but what do we need now? Prescribe what is needed now, then have a mechanism of taking them towards formalization, probably maybe through linkages with the formal manufacturers.
Vimai is showing you some very interesting data here on what you call the world's manufacturing output. When you look at Africa, for example, the manufacturing output of Africa is about 2%, and it's highly dominated by countries like South Africa that contributes about $43 billion, Nigeria with 41 billion. Actually, Kenya is not even among the top 5 here, and so that tells you that there is significant opportunities, in the manufacturing agenda. And Vimalsha, as an industrialist, as somebody who has been involved in Kenya's industrial value chain, what incentives would you expect the government to put in place so that we can have the next Bidco Africa, so that we can have the next Hako Industries, coming up, so that we can have the next Safaricoms of this world?
I think, frankly, if we look at it, a lot of us talk about manufacturing, services, and our size of economy. You look at the global context and see where are we really prospering. We're doing much more better in services than in manufacturing. And I think that's important, and it's growing much faster. But again, like you said, right, the opportunities for us is massive. The incentives required from government is to improve and enhance our competitiveness of our labor, productivity output, and also remove wastage. I think the biggest benefit would be from removing wastage in government, wastage in resources. I shouldn't say this, but I think, we've seen a lot of wastage whereby we put in resources to a lot of non-value-adding activities, right? But infrastructure, no doubt. I think infrastructure is probably a prerequisite for you to start doing things. It's like having a mall, build a mall, and then you have shops. Now, in the shops, you need to get people there and you get traffic there. So I think that's where the task is now. So we've done a fantastic job of infrastructure. We've come to a good level. Now is the time to say, revive all the SMEs, everybody else to say, fine, now take advantage of all this infrastructure. Have we made ourselves competitive? After the infrastructure, we've also put in so many roadblocks onto everything. There's a levy for everything nowadays. Even for farming now there's a levy. Even for oil crops there's a levy. It's for everything there's such a levy. Now the question that I ask, and this is important for the government to address, is these levies are meant for what? What service are they giving to you? In fact, the fact is they're not giving any service, but they give you pay them money for that license or that levy, and then they give you approval to say you paid. That's fine. What did that money go into? Did it give you an extra service? Did it give you improvements? No. Did it make you competitive? No. It was going towards the administration. So I think there's radical surgery required right now in Kenya. By radical surgery, I mean reduce the entire amount of wasted expenditure. We are putting a lot of money into government, size of government. I think we're actually going and doing administration over the same cake that we've been baking for years. The size of the cake has not gone 10 times. If the size of it goes up, then increase administration. Today what we've done is we've added more and more and more micro administration right up to this small traders being administered by 10 more people. So when they're paying a levy, it's going towards their costs. We can remove all that immediately. And I think that's where we say radical surgery to say, fine, enhance competitiveness of every SME, enhance of every manufacturer, anybody. Your SME, it should be a ladder that you go from, it's a journey, you go from S to M to E to large, right? From small, medium to large. And that should be the aim. How do we make all our SMEs bigger to medium and larger? That should be the main thing, right? And I think that's going to happen. We shouldn't stay in maintenance mode. Maintenance mode means the size of government is bloated, the expenditure is bloated, and all we're doing is paying them for it. And what are we taxing? We're taxing all the SMEs, all the manufacturers for it. So that's where the move is, number one. Number two, digitize a lot of it. If you digitize a lot of it and don't have levies, and if you're getting a levy, put it as a service. If you are providing an essential service, then you pay for the service, but then you're getting it and make it competitive. In fact, more SMEs can do so much more in that whole space. So I think that's there. The question is, we will need to make some, let me put it, unpopular decisions to say, I need to reduce size of government. Why do we need 349? I mean, I know I could be very unpopular. Why do we need 349 MPs in parliament making laws? Right? We've been making laws and laws, and the question is...
And actually it's 416 when you throw in nominated MPs, nominated senators, and of course elected senators, in a population of about 60 million people?
Correct. 55.
55.
And again, the whole administration is too bloated. We need to make it far more digital.
And even, and this is something that in the early years of Uhuru Kenyatta's administration, you know, there was a spirited attempt to try and to trim the country's public wage bill. I want to believe now it has grown, even though, you know, that whole plan fell through. Is this something that you would expect the new administration to pick up? And where do you see are areas where the government can cut down on wastages?
I think this requires the type of leadership that we need, which is be radical, make sure we remove wastage, identify the wastage. A lot of people don't see it as wastage. By wastage, I mean all the corruption, all the stealing, all the theft, all the unnecessary stuff that we spend on, right? Allowances, this and that and whatnot. Let's make it different, number one. Number two, the leadership will require, okay, fine, can you reduce the entire size and radically improve productivity? Agriculture itself, agribusiness. Move from being agriculture into agribusiness, add value to all our products and really make it better. Even if you see the elections this time, right? All the jackets and the coats and the caps and the t-shirts are coming from China. Why aren't we adding value here? And that's my point to say that we can do a lot more here. We just make it more competitive. Every county can put up more industries, right? If we went into fruit farming and other farming, scientific farming is the only way to go. There's no other option. And that way you're not rain dependent. Irrigation, like crazy. Just go and do irrigation, which means water management at the best level, and then give nutrients. Fertilizers, we don't even have a full fertilizer factory in Kenya. We're still importing and mixing in Kenya, right? Why can't we get into that in a radical way? Number one. Number two, I think the issue is that the leadership required right now is to say we have done enough with corruption. In fact, give a full amnesty and say, fine, get out with it, but from now on, no more leakages. And be very ruthless on that. Yeah. I hope I answered your question, but incentive-wise, competitiveness,
that's what you're talking about.
Yeah, yes. I just wanted to, again, it's always easy to learn from others. You know, where we are in Kenya, we are very similar to the situation Japan was in after World War II, between the years 1945 to 1956. And the challenge that was facing them, which is currently facing Kenya, is, of course, as you rightly put, is productivity in terms of agriculture. Number two is technology. not only technology in terms of e-government, but technology in terms of the resourcefulness of Kenyan entrepreneurs. We have indices after indices indicating that Kenya is performing well. Look at the Global Innovation Index. Kenya is number 3. In Africa, look at startup ecosystem index. Kenya is up there. If you look at the amount of venture capital that Kenyan startups are attracting, we currently account for 17% of all venture capital coming into Africa. Look at Visa; they have set up their hub in Kenya. Look at Amazon. Look at Microsoft. All this gives Google. All this, even cryptocurrency adoption index, even new indices we are leading. So it tells you that we are very innovative in terms of our population. Look at the different innovations that are happening. COVID happened, and we already had someone develop a ventilator in a month of months. What happened to him? Of course, it didn't go anywhere because of systemic support. So again, there is an opportunity for us to invest in such a sector. If you look at Nigeria, for instance, within a year they've already passed a startup bill, because even President Buhari realizes that this is a sector that has a very high return on investment. Look at Tunisia. Every other country is looking towards building some Silicon Valley of sorts. We are stuck at infrastructure. I'm not saying that setting up Konza and laying fiber is bad. It's good foundational, but there are softer issues that in terms of legislation and policy that can catalyze innovation across 47 counties. You just need counties to be able to open up themselves, create a small space like we've seen in Makueni. They have an innovation hub. Then bring young people, start training them, and just giving them the support for them to be able to attract funding. We're already attracting over 17% of all venture capital coming to Africa, and if you are to analyze that we are still at seed stage. We're not attracting big ticket venture capital, which is where Nigeria is. So if we're able to create a critical mass of innovation, support them, then probably we can start to see growth in terms of innovation, which of course has an effect of making bigger industries or the big corporates to be more innovative. Why do you think Visa set up their hub in Kenya? Because they want to tap into the talent that is here for them to be able to create innovative products. The link between corporate Kenya and startup is still not there. Yeah, so that also is an avenue that maybe probably we can just explore.
You see, when you look at SMEs, and it's proper to give credit where it's due. Kenya is one of the few countries in Africa that has enacted an SMEs Act. Kenya is one of the few countries in Africa that has an authority whose role and pure mandate is to look at the interest of SMEs in the country. But are we trying to say that we are very strong on passing policies, but very weak when it comes to supporting those policies and ensuring that there is an implementation through kind of a process?
Exactly. So the whole idea of SMEs didn't start even when we implemented the MSME Act 2012. The conversation of SMEs started from independence. They had the MSME Act in 2020. We developed the MSME Policy 2020, which tried to condense all these interventions in government. But the challenge we have still is there is a lot of silo that is happening within government. Yes, we have an authority, the MSME, MCA, under the Ministry of Industry and Trade. But if you look at different ministries, there are interventions that are going towards SMEs. How many incubation centers that government have? We have Kenya Industrial Estate, we have KIRDI, we have the Ministry of ICT doing interventions within the MSME space. So there is a lot of redundancy or use of resources towards the SMEs. So yes, we have an authority, yes, we have an act, but government needs to condense all interventions within a particular ministry. So that anything that happens towards small businesses is acted on in a single unit. So that when an SME goes to get their license, or they need some intervention, it is done within one ministry. So I think that's a challenge that we've had. Of course, we can have a strategy, but implementing it becomes a challenge. We've had Industrial Policy 2012, 2016. All of them are very lofty. But if it comes to actual implementation, they don't happen. Either you have the head of whatever being politically appointed, Do they have the best expertise to implement that? Of course, then that the jury is still out there in terms of that. But yes, we have good policies, but ideally they don't, number one, resonate with SMEs. We have a challenge in terms of implementation. Then the people we appoint for these positions, because either they are politically appointed, then probably their heart in terms of implementation might not be there. If you are to add corruption, then of course it becomes a complete deadlock that you can't do anything.
Vimal, Otieno is painting a very bleak image of the SMEs industry or the SME sector in this country. Do you agree with him that the situation is as dire as he's saying?
Well, it depends on different viewpoints, but I think the way I look at it is going forward, right?
I agree.
And where we are today, right? And from here going forward, what are the opportunities? And I could also challenge him to say, do we see opportunities or do we see gloom going forward? I would put it that we see a lot more opportunities. The question is, what do we need to do to really unleash these opportunities and let them move, right? Now, it's going to be the SMEs and everybody else. All the manufacturers need to move in and make it happen. Now, when you talk about every county, right, we've devolved a lot of functions. By devolving, we've got every county has to come and bring up bankable projects. A bankable project means get them done, to what needs to be done, and then look for investors. Now the SMEs also need to look at many areas in the county governments. There's so many opportunities there. The question is, what are we doing about it? I think a lot of concentration was in Nairobi, right? And the cities now. Nakuru is probably the fastest growing city, Eldoret, Kisumu, Mombasa. But really, can we look at that and say, fine, what else do we need there? I would put it this way, let's find out the pain points of all the SMEs. What are the pain points? Is it this, that, what not? And, frankly, you'll find 2-3 things sometimes. A link to market is missing. A link to market. Where do I sell? I do all this, but where do I sell it, right? If you see a lot of our handicrafts and a lot of creative stuff also, when it's made locally here, the question is we don't know where to sell it. That's where they need the help. Let's go help them, bring them together.
And who is supposed to do that? Is it the government, is it the private sector, or is it a concerted effort?
So we have already set up so many institutions. I think the radical surgery I mean is, let's look at which institution really serves what. And we spend too much money on that. Yeah. Can we now make it such that they actually help? For the SMEs, we help them get the linkage to market. Handicrafts in the world today, right? If you look at what India did with their handicrafts and cloths and all that stuff, they went and marketed the world and make it bigger. We can do the best. I think we have very good fashion designers. We have very good fashion industry here. But then they do our African prints, our African products. Let's send them out to the world. I'm sure the entire diaspora in the US would love to have that. We've got the market access. Why aren't we getting everybody in the world to start wearing our clothes? So I think the opportunities are plenty. We just need to provide that linkage to markets and get them moving. Now, that's another thing on exports, number one. Number two, the whole of Africa. I think we can see what do they want. The way to start is not to say, I'm producing this now, where do I sell it? It's also to go and look at the markets, what else can we make here that they will want? And therefore, if you start from the customer first, come back towards it to say, fine, the customers want X, Y, Z. Can we make it here and can we make it more competitively? The issue around China, India, and Indonesia and Eastern Asian markets are, they are very competitive in many products. What is our competitive advantage, number one? Number two, we've got access to Europe, America. What can we do there? I think that's key issue right now. I'm sure it's already in the manifestos, but the manifestos are lofty in terms of what they can do on a macro level. Detail-wise, I think we need to get everybody. So what's going to happen now is even the SMEs need to form themselves into groups to say, if this is the textile group, go into the textile group. If it's the handicrafts, if it's metal, if it's Juakali, associations will work together and group together to see where we can sell.
I want us to dash to Kiambu County, where the education CS, George Magoha, professor, is commissioning CBC classes, and let's listen in.
Everything else being constant, I am assuming that the incoming administration will also embark on further additional 10,000 classrooms that may be required as we move forward. In terms of the using of our primary school resources, we have already identified 2,300 classrooms, schools which are within the same precinct as high schools. And because time is of essence, we shall also use those classrooms. There will be about between 3,000 to 5,000 classrooms available in those schools. which means we don't have to worry about teachers because they are in the same compound. I don't want to think for the incoming government, but we have left for them an avenue of low-lying fruits. For example, we have not taken schools which have the same fence with the primary schools. That is an area which they may decide to move into should there be need for extra space. So I think this is something that is deliverable, and I want to thank everybody who has contributed, more specifically the Ministry of Interior and coordination of non-national government with whose officers I've worked with at every stage. I want to thank the chiefs, the deputy county commissioners, the assistant county commissioners, and the county commissioners themselves, right up to the top, that we have worked together. Our target, and that's why I'm out here, because we are supposed to be doing less kidogo, but we have a target to meet, and it shall be met. And that target is another 1,000 classrooms or so scattered across the country. Like I've said, the Nyanza region, the northeastern region, the central region are doing extremely well. We have issues with Western and Nairobi and the coast. So we shall be ensuring that we encourage each other, because this is time to encourage each other, that we are able to actually complete, because money for these classrooms are there. And the most important denominator that the public has to remember is that we are building these classrooms at almost half the usual price, almost half the usual Kenyan price. You know where the rest of the money goes. So if we are producing classrooms like the one you have just seen at 788,200 shillings, why should anybody build a classroom for 1.5 million? And that is the message that I want to leave when I am leaving. I would want people to remember that together with our teams and the teachers and everybody, we are able to deliver 10,000 classrooms in about 8 months at 788,000 shillings. And then ask yourselves how much money has been saved. Nobody is a hero, nobody is a winner, everybody is a winner. There's no loser in the process. But I think it will be then a footprint for people who are coming to ensure that they tell the public why they should use any extra coin to produce a classroom for our children. I don't think, first of all, I'm not going to allow the fielding of questions, and I just want to think whether I can go around things which you might ask me about. Of course, you have heard the pronouncement by Mr. Chebukati. I engaged him yesterday, and we are continuing to work together with the IEBC as far as the by-elections are concerned. Whatever is going to happen, we'll take the safety of our children first. So there should be no worry that when there's a by-election here and there, that the children are going to be scattered. We shall not allow our children to be scattered for a day or two. Since the teachers are there and everybody, and we have enough security, anything can happen when the children are safely in school, and so on and so forth. Basically, I think that's what I wanted to tell you, unless I remember something else, but I think that's what I wanted to. And from here we are going to Ziru Girls High School, where we shall also open another classroom. My teams are working across the nation. We are inspiring each other to work across the nation. Western, which is at about 65-68%, we hope that by Sunday or so it will be around 80%. We want the whole country to have the classrooms for the children. Thank you very much.
There is a concern concerning the age of the grade 6 pupils and the portal that you started about the school selection. And some parents are wondering how, according to their age, they are from Kiambu and you have selected a school in Kisumu, and the age. And also, their age also a concern about the post-adolescent and the pre-adolescent. Do they have enough bathrooms? Will they share the same dormitories?
First of all, let us agree that we respect each other, that I said there is no fielding of questions. So this is the only one I will answer, so that I don't look like we are fighting. First of all, I want to give you information before I answer you. I've been in charge of the Kenya National Examination Council I can say for 6 years, because I was there as chair and as minister. And I was there as chair and also as a minister. And I have presented results to His Excellency the President over the last 6 years. If you like, you can go to NEC and you will find that there are very many children who are 12 and below, who are already in schools. Are we together? And when you look at the Form 4 exams, you will find that there are already very many children who are below 16 and they perform extremely well. I needed you to have that information. So it's not like we are going into a new land. But having said so, the government which I serve, which is still in power up to today, I presume, has done everything possible. And I was directed to inform the public that in this process of junior secondary, the most important thing is the parent and the teacher. I've also said many times that do not take this as a standard 8 posting. So if a parent is worried about the age of the child, then the child can continue in the secondary school that is nearest to the home. It is as simple as that. Not that it has not happened before. We are also encouraging as many of the junior secondary schools as possible to be where they are. That's why we are encouraging the people of my type now, because I can say I earn enough to take a child to a private school, isn't it? If your children are in private school, keep them there until year 9. Have you not heard us saying so? If they are not there, don't rush to take your child to Alliance High School, because even if you take the child there in junior high school, there is no guarantee that the child will remain there. Because when we get to year 9 now, we'll go again to the public, and now it will be the cutthroats. Do you understand? So that is when you now target where you want your child to go to the senior school. So age is a factor, I agree with you, but it is already happening. In fact, in the last exam, over 30,000 children who scored extremely well were underage. That is for your information. But the majority of parents who want to be closer to their children should allow their children to remain as close to their home as possible for these next 3 years. And if it is in the private schools, you may find that most of them have actually converted the primary schools to junior high school. So the pressure will not be there. And like I said, there is no parent who is illiterate. Every parent is intelligent. Are we together? So I hope I have galvanized and answered you properly, that should not be a problem. I want to accuse parents, which I didn't want to do today. Please take time to engage your child and decide where you want the child to go to. It is not the time to say, no, I want my child to go to Kenya High School. That one can wait. That one can wait for until year 9. What we are trying to say is that the majority of the children, even more than it is now, will be day scholars. Right now, 75% of the children are day scholars. But we are hoping that in this junior high school, it can go even up to 80%. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. Let us have our glass half full rather than half empty. Hii watu ya Kenya iko namna gani? Asanteni sana. Thank you very much. Yes, Navi.
Ile part tunakati ile part yenye nasema
Well, that is Education CS, Professor George Magoha there in Kiambu County, commissioning CBC classrooms and, of course, giving an update on where we are. And he's saying that the progress of rolling out CBC classrooms is currently ongoing. Remember, schools reopened today after they were closed on the 2nd of August to allow for the elections to take place. And the CS says that he's hoping that the by-elections slated in some places in the country like Kakamega and Mombasa, he says that we are not likely to see a lot of disruptions, going forward, because time is of essence here. I mean, we are here in studio, we're just asking ourselves, how do we pick up the conversation around, economic growth, manufacturing, and employment, inflation, how to deal with those issues, and of course, I want to give you some very interesting bits and of fact here about, the map of the global manufacturing output. As you can see, it is dominated by China, whereby the Chinese economy, look here, I mean, it's contributed about, or it contributes about $4 trillion to the global manufacturing output. Number 2 is followed by the US at almost half of what China contributes. That's about $2.3 trillion. Germany is also huge because it has about $806 billion. But of key interest here, I want us to look at Africa. Africa, we are still struggling here with very small numbers, because we are talking about 2% of global manufacturing output. The reason why this number looks very strange to us is because when you look at Africa, in terms of population, it is the second most populous continent in the world after Asia. And in terms of landmass, it is the biggest in the world. And so you would expect that because of its sheer land size and, of course, population, then you would have a tremendous amount of contribution to the global GDP, manufacturing output. As you can see, it is very, very minute. It's about less than 3%, which is about 43, or led by South Africa at $43 billion. Nigeria coming in second, tying with Egypt at 41 billion shillings. Morocco, 19 billion US dollars. That is the map of the world when it comes to the global manufacturing output. Japan, by the way, which is a very interesting case that we need to ask ourselves what we are not doing right as Africa. Japan is a very small country, compared to Africa. Of course, the population is also very, very small compared to what we have here in Africa. But their contribution to the global manufacturing output is about $1 trillion US. And we know for sure that when you're driving on Kenyan roads, almost 7 out of 10 vehicles are Japanese made. Okay? We import a lot of our fertilizer from Japan. We import a lot of our electronics from Japan. Are we looking at a situation whereby this is going to change and we start importing our electronics and our vehicles that are either made or manufactured here in Africa, all assembled here in Africa? That's the question that we need to ask. And all the policymakers are asking, how do we seize this opportunity going forward, bearing in mind that Africa has come together as a trading bloc through the African Continental Free Trade Area Agreement. Those are some of the issues that we are asking ourselves here in studio. We have Imal Shah, an industrialist, as well as the chairperson of Mkenya Daima, and Mr. Otieno from Viva Consort. We are taking a short break, and thereafter we'll be back here with more analysis. Stay right here.
Mwezi mtukufu wa Muharram ambao ndio mwezi ambao tuko ndani yake sasa hivi ni mwezi ambao unahusika sana na ibada ya funga ya Tasua wa Ashura.
Kuna haki ya kuifunga siku kama hii, saumu ya Ashura, siku ambayo kwamba ni bora. Ukifunga, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala anakusamia madhambi mengi.
A'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajim. Bismillahir rahmanir rahim.
You got my gold.
Ukiidentify yule mwanamke pale ameanza kujihusisha na mambo ya drugs, you can either sit down, consult with him, alafu baadaye unafanya assessment like Nani alimotivate? Because you cannot intervene directly unless you know the root causes. Ufuatilie, ufanye assessment.
Watoto wetu wametumiwa sana. Na hakuna alikuwa anaweza, lazima uwe shujaa kusema kweli, kujitolea kwa kitu kama ni lazima uamini kufa na kupona.
Drug dependency treatment is helping them. For those who have come out that they need help, where do they go? We have a rehabilitation process.
Some turning points. Ya kwanza ilikuwa is my son, ambayo nilikuwa naona hiyo kitu itakuja kumaffect in future. Alafu the next ni my young brother, ambaye alikuja akaniambia, "Awe Musa, kwani ume lose hope in life, wewe ni aje?"
Do you have a news story to share with KBC? Get in touch swiftly on email news@kbc.co.ke or call 0723-892-654 or 0734-780-124.
Wagwan Rasta. Kumbuka kila Monday ni Iris serving you nothing but the best in reggae music.
Aisha ni yangu, washughulika na yako.
And on Tuesday, it's all about Kenyan music, bringing you the best from the 2-5 flow.
Brand new wheel just hopped in.
And of course, to all you hip-hop heads, we've got you covered each and every Wednesday. Not forgetting, we've got some R&B on the side.
Let me a jiggle, let me see, and let me see the woman that is with me.
Now, every Thursday, tunavuka border across Africa to bring you nothing but the best for Afro Thursday.
Ready for burn up warning, someone's playing.
And on Friday, we do it live with me, Emily Mbai.
And me, DJ Koljax, on the ones and twos.
Not forgetting DJ_Lizadiva Pale Pia. Make sure you get interactive from 4:30 to 6 p.m. #KBC Club 1.
Well, last warning. Don't you ever call my brother a fake millionaire. Kayonga mutu saizi.
Anamnyonga hivi kabisa. His muscle chef Nile. Huku. Wacha tu.
Guys, this is relocating.
Wait, are you guys serious?
Of course. How can you teach in peace when you come to school drunk every day, every morning?
I'm not drunk. Nanuka tu pombe ya jana. Destiny. I wanna rule my destiny.
Classmates, every Saturday on KBC.
Welcome back. You're watching Biz Check. We're live from Broadcasting House, where we focus on issues around the economy, job creation, as well as the issues of inflation and the cost of living. That is the conversation that we are having here. What is in store for the incoming administration and what we need to do to jumpstart economic growth and, of course, to create more jobs and to boost the SMEs in this country. I have a team of experts in the studio, and I want you to look at these numbers because they are very interesting, and I'll be giving you some preview about these numbers. But first of all, I want to go to the coastal city of Mombasa, where some politicians are complaining about the delayed elections in the county of Mombasa. Junaid Karisa is about to give us that update. And now, Junaid, what do you have for us?
Right, good morning, O'Brien. We're coming to you live from the Mombasa Law Courts, and this morning
ODM gubernatorial candidate Abdul Samad Sharif Nasir is expected to file a petition challenging the directive of IEBC chairperson Wafula Chebukati issuing that the Mombasa gubernatorial elections that was slated for 23rd of August be postponed indefinitely. Now, we were with Abdul Samad Sharif Nasir yesterday night after the pronouncement of that directive, and he expressed as to why he is in protest with this directives. Of course, right outside the Mombasa law courts are his supporters who are escorting him to file that petition. According to Abdul Samad Sharif Nasir, he says that the directives are unconstitutional and that he feels that the directives are malicious and shouldn't have been directed. He says that once the directive were issued to postpone earlier on this month, he says that they were supposed to promote voter apathy in this region, to promote a certain candidate to be able to win in the presidential race. However, those are claims that he is just making, and today morning he is expected to come here and see if the courts will assist him in getting orders that will allow that election that is slated for 23rd to proceed without any hitches. Now, Wafula Chebukati yesterday pointed out that he has postponed the Mombasa gubernatorial and Kakamega gubernatorial election based on alleged harassment of IEBC staff at the National Tallying Center. And this harassment at the National Tallying Center has led to other IEBC officials across the country feel afraid to discharge their duties. Hence, he cannot conduct the elections, or the commission cannot conduct the elections that were slated. And so this directive, of course, was met by a surprise and met with protests, as you can see from your screens, from supporters of Abdul Samad Sharif Nasir and himself. He says that there are no grounds that warrant the IEBC commissioner chairperson to warrant for him to postpone these elections. He says that they are ready and they can go to the ballots anytime. However, he feels that his actions are malicious in the postponement of these elections. Of course, we are following up his main contender, his main opponent, Hassan Sarai of the UDA gubernatorial ticket, is expected to also address us, the media, on his stand also, or whether he has accepted this decision, or he is also protesting that these elections be postponed. He is yet to give his remarks as to his position regarding as to the postponement of this election. However, according to Abdul Samad Sharif Nasir, he insists he wants the elections to be conducted on the 23rd. Constitutionally, he has to go to court, challenge the decision by IEBC chairperson. Then if the court give any direction on the matter, then the elections will be conducted on the 23rd. But as it stands, the IEBC chairperson, Wafula Chebukati, has insisted that the elections of the Mombasa gubernatorial will be postponed indefinitely. So we are waiting the arrival of the gubernatorial candidate, who is also the sitting member of parliament in the last legislation. Abdul Samad Sharif Nasir was the Vita member of parliament, to come and address his supporters, because they are charged here from as early as 9 a.m. The supporters were here waiting for him to come and file that petition to have the directive be thrown out so that the elections can be conducted on the 23rd. Also, my colleague Michael Mondiga is at Hassan Omar's office, also getting his remarks on whether he feels comfortable on what was discharged by Chebukati or not. So we are keeping a close eye. The Mombasa team is keeping a close eye this day on how this whole gubernatorial elections stallment will end today. So I hand it back to you, O'Brien, as you wait for the arrival of Abdul Samad Sharif Nasir His lawyers are already arrived. Of course, we have seen some of the elected leaders and some of those who are backing his candidature right behind me. So they're just waiting for his arrival. We see what the court will give direction on the pronouncement on the matter, and then from there we will understand how this whole stalemate will be resolved. The Hassan Omar is also supposed to give his stand. We also wait for his word on the directions that were given by Chebukati. So Brian, we are here keeping a close eye. I'm handing back to you back in the studio.
Well, I must admit that is too much noise around our coast correspondent, Junei Ikarisa there, members of public there, or supporters of politicians there making noise about the delayed elections in Mombasa County. And of course, that's a story that we are following up on. I told you about this map, or some lines, that I'm to explain to you. And when we are looking at the global manufacturing output, and when you look at this line, it's going to tell you a very interesting story, because in 1997, the output was about $6 trillion US dollars, and this has somehow more than doubled in the last 20 years. I want to look at the 2017 numbers, which was captured at 13.2 trillion US dollars. That was in 2017. That is more than double of what manufacturing used to contribute in 1997. That was 20 years ago. And now when you look at between 2017 and 2021, the numbers here are 16.5 trillion US dollars. There was a drop in 2020 for obvious reasons, because of the COVID-19 pandemic that somehow disrupted the global economy much more the manufacturing agenda. So that's how the manufacturing agenda of the world looks like. But I want now to focus on some very salient numbers here coming from the International Monetary Fund. When you look at the World Economic Outlook updated that was released in July this year, you can see the numbers here are looking not very, very good, because the global economy is expected to expand by about 2.9%. That is actually a significant drop, when you put in mind that the world economy expanded by 6.1% in 2021. 2022, you're looking at 3.2%. In 2023, the number is actually likely to look even worse. This is all explained by the global geopolitics. Remember, we are having the Ukraine-Russia crisis, that has impacted the world, badly, and of course, expected to continue up to 2023. Advanced economies, and when you're talking about advanced economies, you're talking about countries like the US, the Europe, Germany, and Germany, Italy, such countries. Their growth in 2021 was 5.2%. It is expected to drop more than by almost 60% to 2.5%. And this number is actually, again, expected to nosedive in 2023 to 1.4%. Numbers there are looking pretty bad. Look at the emerging markets where Kenya is. And in 2021, the economic growth was 6.8%, actually outpacing the global economic growth. In 2022, again, it's also expected to grow faster than the global economy, but of course, it's expected to be a dip compared to 2021 at 3.6%. And then when you go to 2023, there will be an uptick of around 3.9%. So that's how the global, the emerging markets and developing economies are expected to grow, and this is where Kenya falls, bearing in mind that we are members of the global economy. We expect it to be impacted by what is happening elsewhere. And at this point, I want to pose this question to Cliff, to Victor Otieno. When you look at these numbers, I mean, SMEs, we know for sure that they are a critical component in Kenya's manufacturing agenda, in Kenya's economic growth. How do we boost our numbers, by tapping into the SME sector?
I think it requires, as Vimal is saying, radical surgery in terms of our philosophy. So if you look at the big manufacturing countries such as China, etc., they are manufacturing for the world. So it's not like they are looking to manufacture for the local population. And this, of course, cascades to policy. So if you look at, I think there was a World Bank report that I was looking at the other day, and China has an interesting model around manufacturing called plug and play. So what plug and play means is the government comes and puts infrastructure. They go look for market out there, whether it's looking at big clothing brands. They get the order, come back to their manufacturing and allow SMEs to manufacture for that market. So that immediately what that happens, the issue around market intelligence in terms of knowing what to manufacture, that cost has been removed for the SME. So their only job is to focus on manufacturing. And this has happened for Singapore, has happened for Indonesia. If you have to look at the business process, BPO, so in terms of call centers, it's the government's job to go look out for global value chains, come and train SMEs to be able to meet that market. So it means that there has to be a policy shift for us to be able to look outward rather than making your kiondos, making your curious, and assuming that you're going to get customers. Business has to be driven by market intelligence, and that's what China is doing. That is what Vietnam is doing. If you look at us, maybe from a policy perspective, we are building special economic zones and assuming and trying to attract foreign direct investment. What that happens is, yes, you might be able to get some forex, but the cascading effect or the ripple effect of technological transfer does not happen, or there's no backward linkage towards SMEs. So I think the model that we should be able to do is look for markets, build our special economic zones, and put our SMEs having found out markets, then manufacture, as opposed to having your EPZ, having your special economic zone, and waiting for investors to come in to be able to manufacture. I think that shift can really boost our output in terms of capacity. And what that happens, what that would mean that there is more collaboration between SMEs and the larger manufacturers, because we are all looking at a single market and organizing ourselves, whether by counties or private sector, to ensure that we're able to feed or to manufacture for the world.
Very well. Vimal, I mean, in 2018, President Uhuru Kenyatta developed what he called the Big Four agenda, and one of them was manufacturing, whereby the whole plan was to push manufacturing's the manufacturing sector's contribution to Kenya from 9% to around 15% by the year 2022. Unfortunately, this has not happened. So how then going forward do we push this agenda and ensure that we not only surpass the 15% target that was set for this year, but probably maybe even go to 20%, because we do not have a case study in the world whereby a country became a developed country without a strong manufacturing base?
I think we've got to look at the figures, right? We were targeting to get to 15% by 2022. That was a matter of 5 years, right? In 5 years' time, we get to 15%. But in 5 years' time, our actual GDP would have jumped up a lot higher, right? So when you look at 15% of a higher figure, we actually had to add every year, close to 30-40% on our current capacity. So we had to really do a lot of stuff that we didn't do. I think what we didn't focus on is really implementing much more manufacturing, much more agribusiness, and improve the productivities. This is where, when I'm saying radical surgery, we need to really move from where we are today to have a set standard that is much higher. Now, if we don't do that, it's all about execution. The plan is there. The plan was commercial farming. The plan was massive manufacturing being done here for the world. If you see 4 trillion is what China is doing, we're not even doing that. Our whole GDP is $107 billion per annum, and we're expecting 110 billion this year or next year. But that's also come because of inflation. And I think the issue is that we're at 5.2. So we're in a good position right now. We're at 5.2% growth rate on GDP. So we haven't dropped that yet. And I think this year we'll still end up there, or 5.3, 5.4. That's not bad globally. When you look at your figures that you showed earlier, we're still better off. So we have a positioning. And that's what I'm trying to say is, from this positioning, let's have very high standards. I think the manifestos were clear. They're going to do a lot more. And you've got everything: manufacturing, agribusiness, digital superhighways. You've got a lot there. So if we just do that and implement it, we can get there. Number two, we've got to make sure that we remove a serious amount of spending wastage in the system. We had record collections from KRA. So I think KRA's digitization has helped massively. Now, what Victor is talking about is the data. Let's collect all that data. Let's make sure we've got warehousing and we mine that data to get analytics in order to take decisions, right? Why can't we do that? If the world can do it, we have our young people who are amazing in data analytics, in data scientists and all that stuff. Get it out there and say, fine, let's make productivity. Productivity improvements everywhere. Agriculture, our yield per acre on everything, including maize and wheat and all that stuff needs to go up. We've got so much land, we say unusable. We could start using that. I mean, if Israel has all this sort of a desert, right? And they still get a lot of output. Why can't we do it here? Ukraine, you saw what Ukraine was doing, right? Yeah. It had the entire value chains of products. One stop at Ukraine and they had a world shortage of wheat, world shortage of sunflower oil, and serious problems on fertilizers. What's stopping us from doing that here? I think it's just that we set our goals and standards to a very low level. Let's go up them, and really, it is the time. For us.
Very well. You see, when you look at the globe, Kenya's economic growth forecast, from the IMF to the Central Bank of Kenya to the World Bank, all of them are saying that the economy is going to defy the ongoing political noise and shrug of the global geopolitics of Russia and Ukraine to post some positive growth of about 5.6%. I mean, this is well above the global economic growth, Africa economic growth, and emerging markets. But then, Otieno, how do we make this growth more relevant to our SMEs? How do we make it make sense to our SMEs?
Remember, all those are estimates. All these different entities make assumptions, do projections, but they're estimates. So the reality,
but of course, the estimates are driven out of, they don't just wake up and say this number.
I agree. All I'm saying is what we need to look at is our reality. For example, we know that we are largely agrarian. So our economy largely is dependent on the manufacture, on agriculture, for instance. Agriculture is around 20% of GDP, roughly, directly another 20%. So we are looking at more than 40% of Kenya's GDP relying on agriculture. And we currently have drought. So what that does tell you, we know that, for instance, agriculture contributes more than 75% of manufacturing input. So it means that if these two sectors are directly impacted by drought, it means that we need to institute some changes to ensure that we avert a crisis. We are currently having issues around fuel, which, of course, if you look at fuel, is a great input in terms of the entire economy. So there are red flags that are currently there. Of course, we are looking at, as Vimal has indicated, we have the Ukraine-Russia crisis, which has an effect on wheat. Remember, wheat, rice, and maize is something that we import despite us having arable land. So I think, in my opinion, is that we have very little resources in terms of government. We need, number one, to get data so that we use the resources that we have in the most efficient and effective way possible. Not looking at a certain goal, but looking at incremental growth. So if we're able to, for instance, go to a textile market in Uhuru Market, how can we be able to ensure that their revenue doubles? Yeah, so those small changes is what would cascade to having growth. But otherwise, if we have conversation at a macro level and say these are the sweeping policy interventions that we are going to do, then we might miss the point. I think it's time for us to roll up our sleeves, go get the actual data in all these manufacturers, whether manufacturers or different business entities. How can we be able to increase, either reduce your cost through taxes and licenses, and be able to just ensure that they're able to grow by a small margin. I think that's where the crux of the matter is.
Vima, I mean, one of the challenges that we are facing as a country is very high numbers of unemployment, and I saw the numbers last week. They were standing at 17%. This is, of course, catastrophic if it is not taken care of. I mean, how do we then reduce this number going forward?
I think we actually have a real problem, and I think we've all got to go. I mean, all governors, MCAs, everybody else, senators, get into problem-solving mode and say, fine, I need to create X number of jobs in my county, in my area. And I think the governors are executive who can get that done. First and foremost, do do we have as governors the amount of GDP in my own county? The GDP, then what's my total employment, what's my unemployment, and what's the caliber of people that I have? What do they need? Do they need more training? Do they need more education? Do they need more learning? Let's get that done. And once we get that, we know what the core competencies of these people are. What can they do better? If it's digital, I think we can actually set up. We don't need everybody to come to Konza and do that. I think we need to get it out in the counties to say, we have digital infrastructure there, put the bandwidth there and cluster people together. What is Silicon Valley? It is a cluster of people coming together and saying, fine, now we have the venture capitalists there, you have the IT guys there, you've got people who are doing problem solving. They don't have to be IT people, but they're doing problem solving for national projects. And this is where we can start saying, let's get them employed. Number one. Number two, let's go and create various types of data and all that stuff the digital place can do. Do that for the whole of Africa. I think after M-Pesa, we don't have the next big thing in Kenya. Can we now start telling them, create these from every county? That's one thing. Second thing, I think when we actually check out the competencies we have, right? We have two things that we've got. We've got a good diaspora out there. In fact, I was in Qatar 2-3 weeks ago, and at a conference I was addressing, at the economic conference, they have 40,000 Kenyans already there. They said we need 100,000 because we like the ethos and the ethics of the Kenyan people. And that was amazing. So we could create world-class human capital here in Kenya and export to the world. You see what the diaspora remittances are giving us today, right? They're giving us very good foreign currency. So that's one export. Next, tourism itself. I think tourism doesn't even require investments. It requires a service attitude. It requires people to come in, right? When you get in the airport, stop this whole business of you can't get visas and all that stuff. We've got to open that up. I think that's something that we really make tourism. I mean, talking to our people, they say, oh, we're struggling with 1.5 million, 1.2 million tourists. Egypt gets 30 million tourists per annum. Why can't we aim at 10 million and 20 million and say, fine, now we get there. If we have to get there, we have to improve our airports, we have to improve our logistics, we have to allow airlines to come in through freely. We also have to build more hotels and build more resorts and upgrade our systems. I think these are things that have to be done. But that's a low-hanging fruit itself in tourism, right? Now, how many people can be employed there? They will all need to eat. They will all need to have places to go to. Our whole country, in fact, every county should have a very strong tourism agenda to say, fine, on tourism, what are we going to do? And really have that ease of doing business because it's all online. People book things online. Let's showcase our country to the world. We have substance here. And yet, sorry to say that, but in Egypt, we have the pyramids, and that's it, right? And the desert. But you come to Masai Mara, and every visit, it is a different scene. The animals are different, but at least it's pleasing. So I'm saying there's so much more we have. Then you took at manufacturing. Talk about a lot of other things in terms of agribusiness. Our entire land value chain, right? Every county governor needs to have a master plan. Create a master plan of that county, right? And get the data. Then create a blueprint for agriculture, for transformation in healthcare, transformation in whatever else we do there. And then get value addition there. And really, we can do a lot more. I think, like Victor is saying, we're doing a lot of import substitution manufacturing. Can we now start saying we are now producing for the world or for the rest of Africa? And get ourselves competitive there. That's where the radical surgery of what is it that we need? I mean, there are associations who will give you all the ideas on what to do with manufacturing, what to do with whether it's legal or medical. We can do that. I think the amazing opportunity that we have is we've got a lot of headroom to improve ourselves. And I think to go from where we were today, you know, at a lower rate of manufacturing output, to go to 15% is not difficult, but we have to take action. And I think it's time for taking action on every front and getting it done, and then having results-oriented people. This brings me back to making sure that we don't place people who say, because he lost election, let me place him there, let him become this minister, that minister, whatever, or that governor, or whatever. We need people who can take action. I think the manifestos are clear. Let's get people who can say, get it done. Results-oriented, just like in the corporate world.
That's a point.
Get it done. Create more jobs. And then how many jobs, you know, your salary should be based on how many jobs you created or you helped create, right? If your GDP growth rate in your county is happening, there should be a salary for that. But no other allowance is just for sitting and doing nothing.
Exactly. Otieno, look at counties. I mean, they're supposed to be engines of growth when it comes to Kenya's economic agenda. But when you look at how our counties are being managed, and they're supposed to be our mini economies, adding into our large economy up here. How do we then make our counties our engines of economic growth, engines of prosperity, engines of social growth?
I think from the get-go is if you look at Kenya from a global perspective, they don't look at you as national government and county governments. They look at you as a whole, and I think that should be a starting point in terms of how can this whole economy be able to tap or create value for the world. That's number one. So that when you have that attitude or that school of thought, it means that you don't see yourself as a cost center, because that's what counties are currently. Is they're looking to be able to generate revenue to meet the administrative cost. So I think you can see that it has to be a revenue center where we're able to generate revenue and we're able to meet our cost. So I think even as different counties have their own agenda, I think there has to be some very high degree of collaboration, either through the regional economic blocks. So as a regional economic bloc, what is our competitive advantage if you are to look at either COMESA or looking at CFTA? And how can we be able to collaborate at the regional economic bloc, then at a national level, so that we have a coherent system? Not having one county go do an MOU with Qatar, another goes and signs a different whatever contract, etc. I think we need to be able to look at ourselves as competitively. What's our competitive advantage as a region, as a county, as a region, then as a country, and bring it into one value chain. So that if, for instance, we're manufacturing phones, you can't have everything manufactured in a county. There has to be one component, and this works well in the European Union. You see, maybe, for example, Airbus, you have different components being manufactured in different countries and assembled in one. But the full value is shared across the different nations. So I think that's the attitude we need to have, other than, it's me as a governor, this is my manifesto, and this is what I'm going to achieve. Chances are you might not be able to create the value that we are looking at. The world is looking global. If you look at Vietnam, if you look at the entire Asian tiger, they are manufacturing for the world. They are looking at the country as a whole being competitive. That's why I was saying issues around CES have to be harmonized, because they are increasing the cost of doing business within the county. Issues around branding license have to be harmonized, so that if I come and I'm moving my product from this county to the next, let me get one charge. It's fully automated, I pay it by M-Pesa or whatever, so that the cost of doing business goes down, and it encourages collaboration and value addition. Because if, again, yes, Kitale is a bread basket in terms of wheat and, and etc. We have tea and coffee, the rest. You would find that maybe the value addition needs to be done in Kisumu. So if you have to transport the maize from Trans Nzoia, or the coffee from Kirinyaga, and you want to transport it all the way to Kisumu, remember, from a county government perspective, they would charge that. They're not looking at the overall value. Yeah, so I think that's the challenge that we have. And I think if we're able to reach what we call the attractor state, where our strategy is for the whole rather than for a unit, I think for us that would help us a lot. Because even if you look currently, a lot of capacity building happens for SMEs, but for what? You can train me on business management, but if you don't link that with access to market, then you will have year on training me on capacity and give me a certificate. I don't need a certificate. Train me to manufacture a shoe that is going to US. That is relevant capacity building. Otherwise, just doing capacity building and doing a lot of intervention is just a waste of resources.
And when you look at the last 10 years of devolution, one would say that it has been a trial and error. We've been in some kind of a trial and error situation. But now, in the next 10 years, we cannot have any excuse. I mean, we are supposed now to get it. We are supposed to hit the ground running. And so how do you create synergy between the county government and the national government to ensure that both of them, are not speaking at cross purpose, and they are working together for the benefit of the same citizenry. Vimal.
I think it's going to be a tough one to handle right now, because we already have the campaign part over now, but now we still have a split government or split regions in terms of what. And this is the time to unite everybody to say, let's work for Kenya Inc. And I really for Kenya to coming together, because you don't want to make it difficult, but you want to make it easier. National government and county, look, the implementers are the county governments, right? National sets the policies and get things done. But I think overall, revenue-wise, we're doing well. Can we remove the wastage? Can we have all the counties on one computerized system for procurement? Is that possible? I think it's very much possible to say all procurement. Now we do group buying. If it is whatever we're buying, right, it should be groupage. It's done online and you get it off. The IFME system was started, but I think it was destroyed. And I think it was destroyed by politicians to say, let's not have this because it's becoming too transparent and everybody knows what we're buying and what price we're buying. We don't make money. It's not time to make money. It's time to make sure you make people productive. It's up to the people and the public to ask for performance now. You promised a lot. Let's go act on it. Digitalization, immediately. Now, if you get that done, you actually know who's spending on what and how much they're spending on a dashboard. Create digital dashboards, what Victor is talking about, having a survey done once in 5 years, and then we're working on it. Have a digital dashboard. If you're driving your car and you see your speedometer is showing you last week's trip, right, on your speedometer and your gear shift, when do you shift gears? You need to have that live so you know all revenues. In fact, if you see some of them, I think like Keep Your Head, a digital revenue tracker, which every day's revenue is tracked, they know it on their computer, they have a system. Why can't we get that for every county?
And I'm sure it is very possible, because for now, I mean, I want you to hold your thought, Vimal, because we want to go to Maendeleo House, where Maendeleo Wanawake, they are commenting about the just concluded electoral process. Let's listen in now.
Many MCAs, 3 governors. But after these elections, we've done pretty well. We have been able to get 7 governors from 3, single constituencies 26 from 23, again the 47 women representatives. We are not forgetting the MCAs. It is indeed a significant step towards the Kenyan women participation in the 2 houses. We also want to thank, as we have always done, His Excellency the President for holding the country together during the elections, and we say thank you, sir, as always. We also want to thank the security agencies. They too did a commendable job, not forgetting what we've seen the clergy do, and even the other people who are involved in the elections. Maiwo has come around. During the 70 years, there are times we have to make bold decisions. And this particular time, we want to say we have always supported the government, and we will continue to do so. When the country settles down, we will engage the women who have been elected so that we forge a way forward for the many members we represent in this country. It is not enough to go to parliament, to go to Senate and just be like a club. It is enough to all of us Kenyan women to sit down and say, what is this one thing we want to do? We are number 3 in the world for girls giving birth at 10 years and therefore becoming grandmothers at 20 years. And so we want to sit down and look at the poverty, which is with our girls who are very many now in the numbers. What are we going to do to the fistula affecting our girls? So today, I may probably not be going the way you want me to go, but we want to say that this far we have come. Schools are opening today. The children who are in the arid areas, we are asking the government to consider. Some of them have nothing to eat, to be given something as they go to school. With those few remarks, I want to thank you. Any questions, please? It was going to be a brief statement. We shall talk more in due course.
We've talked of the
For the president holding the country together in the elections, what is your observation of the Kenyans themselves? Sometimes we want to say the president held the country together, but how about the Kenyans themselves, as how they conducted themselves?
Oh, I didn't.
What is your observation of what, or your opinion of what is going on? As we could be having court cases. You at some point you chose some direction because you wanted to support a mother, a colleague, a woman. But seemingly the direction, your choice has not yielded to the fruit of your direction. What is your take?
First of all, I want to apologize if I didn't thank Kenyans, because we are peaceful, because all of us Kenyans decided to do the right thing. That was to vote and wait for results. As to the other question, you are very clear, according to you, that my choice did not succeed. I have said, when the country settles down, we shall come back here and talk. I represent very many women. I have listened to them thinking that we've been a bit quiet, and I have come here to say the few things I have said. So when the country settles down, we shall talk.
How effective has your efforts to ensure women get position, both in elective positions and other? And by the way, you attribute the success of the women in gubernatorial position at this election to your effort, or merely the efforts of individual women and the choices of Kenyans?
I think all we did as a women organization was to do the call. The decisions of who votes who is very personal. This is a democratic country, and therefore we don't want to sit here and claim that, oh, this women is because of Maendeleo. We just want to say Maendeleo put a voice, and if our voice helped us get to where we are, then we thank God, because we have the numbers to do what we really think we need to do for this country, and that is developing this country, Kenya.
Thank you.
Yeah. Any other question? Mko na maswali ingine? Asanteni sana, tumeshukuru sana kwa kuja. Tutaendelea na kuwasiliana. Asanteni sana. May the good Lord bless you. I'm sorry, this book.
Well, that is the Maendeleo ya Wanawake National Chairperson Rehab Mwikali there, giving a brief on their take when it comes to the elections. Well, we are back here in studio. We're looking at the issues of economic development, job creation, as well as the SMEs and how we can boost them, to deliver more job numbers as well as boost economic growth. We are in the company of Imalsha, industrialist, as well as the chair of Kenya Daima Initiative, and we're also in the company of Victor Otieno, the managing director of VIFA Consort. We continue with the conversation because our time is almost up, and I want to hear from Otieno. Otieno, we were asking ourselves, how do we synthesize, the development agenda at the national level with the county level? And when you look at the county integrated development plans, and then you compare them with Kenya's long-term economic growth blueprint, that is Vision 2030, you see a lot of gray areas. You in a situation where counties are supposed to feed into the Vision 2030, it is the other way around. So how do we synthesize our development plans?
I think that gives us a perfect opportunity to be able to align. Again, if you are to look at Kenya as a whole, looking at the global market, we need to have our vision aligned, both at the national as well as at the county. So Vision 2030, in terms of language, in terms of structure, in terms of pillar, has to cascade to the county integrated development plans, because again, counties cannot spend outside of the county integrated development plans. So I think that needs to be put out there. What that means is that even if you were to look at the finance bills of each counties, there would be alignment. So currently, as an investor, you can't even make the decision of whether to invest in Nairobi County vis-a-vis Mombasa County. So with that alignment, with the Vision 2030 county integrated plans, which goes to the finance bill. So if you are to download the finance bill of Nairobi County and try to find out how much would it cost me to set up a butchery vis-a-vis setting up a butchery in Laikipia, you can't be able to compare apples and apples, and that becomes a disincentive for an investor. And I think during the break we were just discussing with Vimal here in terms of why can't we have a county competitive index where counties are able to, of course, automate their processes, put information out there in terms of the full cost of doing business within the counties, then let investors or SMEs decide where to invest. I think with that index alone, that can be able to now can be an incentive enough for governors to be able to really ramp up their service delivery and investment efforts within the counties. And of course, the net effect is that Kenya becomes competitive, and of course, the cost of doing business and ease of doing business within the counties, is competitive.
Vimal, from where you see it, as an industrialist and a past chair of KEPSA and strong involvement in Kenya Association of Manufacturers, what would you say has been the biggest challenge when it comes to the development of SMEs in this sector?
I think two issues. One initially was with SMEs was capacity building, but I think a lot of that has been done. Like Victor said, we can keep on doing capacity building, but we need to then say, okay, what are the products, what sectors, what areas and what linkage to market are we addressing? And then we can start unleashing them. I think in the area of what Ajira has done, even in terms of digitalness, I think we've done a good job there. A lot more new startups are coming up. There's incubation hubs now. There's a lot of activity going on there. But we need to take them to the next level of saying, fine, get them to link to venture capital, angel capital, and really get them to be exposed out there. I think that's happening on various small fronts in Kenya. But I think for SMEs also, I think the issue around taxation is a big one. Yeah. The licensing and taxation. I think if you look at how did licensing come into being in the world, even for Kenya or for a Commonwealth, the British rule, when we were under British rule, they actually wanted to say, how do I discriminate these guys from coming into business and those guys from getting into business? They brought in licenses. A license was a right to operate, right? And then they charged a fee for it. But at the same time, they actually barred people from doing things. And now we've adopted the same thing to say, oh, I need licenses and all that stuff. Yeah. But then in the licenses, we're not doing anything of value addition. We're not giving them a service. I think when you had the city council, you were giving garbage services and you were getting a fee for that. Then it became licensing. I think we need to move away from licensing to say, fine, value-added services, number one. Number two, enhance productivity, right? Teach people how to do things, show them. I mean, the whole recycling, and we talk about climate change and environmental stuff. Mm-hmm. The whole recycling industry can be done in a big way on every county. Every county takes all its waste products, recycles them, whether it's plastics, paper, metal, whatever, and have recycling industries there. Why not? And I think this is where you could create thousands of jobs for people to collect that and sort it out. All you need to do is sort at source. Sorting at source, so that you put paper away, plastic away, metal away, and then you get recycling done. So there's a system for that. And I think this is where, if we build that capacity, we can do a lot more. It would add jobs, but at the same time, you could actually produce shoes. You could actually produce garments from a lot of these waste products and plastics. That's one area. Second, I think it's important is access to finance. Our biggest problem is bankable projects for SMEs. And this is where, you're heading the SME thing. And I think important thing is to say, how do we access finance for SMEs? What happens there? A lot of banks will come out and say, they do greenwashing and say, we've got a fund for SME. But then they go back and say, give me collateral, give me a house, or give me something really tangible collateral. There is no real lending being given here on a risk basis. They don't want any risk at all. So I think the bankers also, and I think that's another topic for another day, but bankers need to come and really say, we really mean what we say. Because the minute we go back and say, give me a property or give me real estate, and against that I lend, then really the people who are startups don't have that. And that collateral business is important. Second thing is, government levies and charges. To start up a small SME, you need to have 10 licenses and this license. Get rid of that. right? If it's one single license, get all that approval and make sure they're of a certain standard. Let's raise our standards also for that. If we had a certain standard for kiosks, a certain standard for shops, and say these are minimum rules, our shops would be upgraded, our places would be upgraded on the spot. I'm not one for saying let's have a very low standard because we are poor. No, raise the standards and the bar so high that SMEs will abide by it, but then that makes them productive, right? And I think that's happened to a lot of places. You can see even in areas where, there are all small shops and somebody opens a nice new supermarket or a shop. Bang on, everybody starts moving there. So that's where the upgradation happens. I think that's important. Lastly, I would say is for all of us to get back to work and say, let's go. And let's go start doing things, looking at things, and forming associations and getting together and advocating for what you want changed, articulating well. A lot of SMEs, I think they vent out on public or on TV or on media. Let's stop doing that. Let's go and say, fine, this is what we need. And I think we were discussing with Victor, let's have a county competitiveness index. Let's also have a county cost of living business index done by the media or wherever. It's published regularly. And then another one that says county attractiveness. So this whole thing about doing business index that was scrapped by the World Bank. We could actually start ease of doing business by county and show what is the easiness. That will help the governors, senators, whatever, and say, fine, I need to ease up all these things. Even the MCAs will say, fine, here. From that, you could even decipher it into MCAs and say, fine, which one is most competitive? And then probably give them awards, right, for improving. I think the public will then demand to say, we need to improve our systems here and there. You get data. And I think that data can be done by our local youth to say, fine, start these indexes. The biggest issue, I think, is spending. Let's cut the waste on spending by government. It will need radical surgery. It will need political, will to say, let's get that done so that we remove this whole issue of it's our turn to eat and we've gone there to eat and then we extract from the thing. Let's bake the cake bigger. Let's go and improve our productivity and let's make our markets bigger.
But what is your parting shot now?
I think we currently have a startup bill in Parliament, and the startup bill focuses on startups and innovation. We've seen that's a trend. If you look at US, Silicon Valley, if you look at Israel, if you look at Tunisia, Senegal, everyone is creating an enabling environment for startups. One is we need to understand that startups are different from SMEs. Startups are innovative, use technology and stuff. SMEs have a predictable business model. We currently cannot mix the two in terms of legislation. So I think for the next parliament, that's something that probably they need to take on seriously, and we hope that we can be able to unleash the power of innovation in Kenya.
Very good. Well, and still in the same spirit, I mean, we know new people will come into the office finally, and there will be ministers, there will be PSAs, there will be new policymakers in office. What would you expect them to focus on, in a bit to pick it up from where the outgoing administration is leaving things at?
I think for the people who are going to take office now, we were either blue or we were yellow in color. If you mix these two primary colors, you get green, right? Let's make it green, let's put it as a go, and let's go get our country united. Because now as a leader, whichever office you take, you are now a leader of that whole pack, whichever place the campaigning went on. And I think that's important. First of all, let's unite the country, number one. Number two, let's make sure we create the jobs that we promised. We actually implement what we put in our manifestos and really get on with life. And I think the blame game should go away. The issue around, you did that, you did this to me, you said this to me, forget it all. I think during campaigns, everybody says everything to everyone. For now, it's the time to say, let's be one. Kenya is important, and let's put it forward, and let's make it a shining example in the rest of East Africa, COMESA, and the world to say, here is a democracy that's deepened, and let's go for that 10 times more growth. And I think we can go to this 10% GDP growth rate immediately for the next 2-3 years and sustain it there. And I think for the next elections, it's got to be digital.
Yeah,
very good. Gentlemen, at that point, we come to the end of Base Check for today. Asante sana, and this is a conversation that we have to keep on going to ensure that we get everything right, because, as we say, Kenya is ready for takeoff. We cannot be on takeoff mode forever, right?
Yeah.
No.
We must get out of the, of the runway so that other planes can land and fly as well.
But O'Brien, it goes back to every single person saying, nitatenda wajibu wangu. I think every person's responsibility to say, let me do my act, let me do my responsibility. And like we said, mimi ni Mkenya daima, nitatenda wajibu wangu. Let's make that happen. Let us all take responsibility, not just the leaders to say, oh, we're waiting for see what they do. Let us all start getting on with it and let's take responsibility. It's our country. We have no plan B. Thank you.
Asante sana. Thank you very much, gentlemen.
Asante.
Thanks.
Well, this has been BizCheck live from Broadcasting House, and of course, looking at issues of economy, joblessness, as well as inflation and SMEs. And well, it's time now for us to go back to work and continue with our project, Kenya. My name is O'Brien Kimani. Thank you for your time. See you later.
The king's not punishing you two, but I can't let this go unanswered. From today on, everyone in Floretta Court is on house arrest. Without my permission, no one is allowed to leave.
Your Majesty think that I'm being unreasonable?
If the Heavenly King decides you should be punished, I can't save you. Now stay here and be good.
I hope you'll allow me to marry Prince Shinova.
You still want to marry him?
Life cannot always be too serious.
Yeah, man, what's up, yeah?
Allah? We've got to take some time off and laugh, 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 and laugh. And we tickle you down with lots of laughter.
That's why I'm saying I'm who is who.
Huh? With satire like no other.
Tell him to bring it on.
Dakachapa.
What's up, party people? They call me DJ Coljax. Now be sure to catch me live on KBC Channel 1 each and every Friday, right here on KBC Channel 1 from 10:30 p.m. and each and every Saturday from 11 p.m.
You're rocking with the best in the business. It's DJ Coljax.
As I play you nothing but the best in throwback.
mtukufu wa Muharram ambao ndio mwezi ambao tuko ndani yake sasa hivi. Ni mwezi ambao unahusika sana na ibada ya funga ya Tasua wa Ashura.
Una haki ya kuifunga siku kama hii, saumu ya Ashura, siku ambayo saumu ambayo kwamba ni bora. Ukifunga Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala anakusamia madhambi mengi.